So I'm about to link you to something below that's very interesting. The Senate is basically talking about putting some kind of regulation on video games due to the Connecticut shootings. And it got me to thinking about how the difference between communists and anarchists isn't so much the end goal as it is the means, but the justification of those means is a very important difference as well. Obviously, communists believe in a state, and anarchists don't, not even in a transitional period. And this begs the question, what do you do when the people are reactionary? Not simply your government, not simply, those that control the land and resources, the bourgeois. What do you do when the common man, the workers themselves, are reactionary? They're revisionist, they're regressive, they don't want a revolution. And, it's easy to say that, oh, the people know what's best, but it's more than that. The people do indeed do the work. They do indeed make the nice things that we take for granted. But this does not mean that necessarily they are doing what is in their own best interest. This does not necessarily mean that they are good in and of themselves. This is why communism needs a state, because you have to transition people away from what they've been conditioned to believe. They've been conditioned to believe in class hierarchy. They've been conditioned to believe in violence, death, despair, pain, suffering, anguish, and tyranny as a form of governance. They have been conditioned to be misanthropic, inhumane, and ridiculous. And you're not going to get over that overnight. You're not going to undo that simply by, throwing some Molotov cocktails and holding up picket signs. So, you have to work with the state. And I'd go as so far as to say that you'd be better off talking to your local congressman or something as opposed to taking to the streets. Because the people are just that brainwashed. The people don't want to listen. Proof is, even though I have some amazing friends on YouTube, and there are a lot of good people, there are a lot of bad people too. And they're in no position to be acting that bad. They're in no position to be defending capitalism, but they do anyway. Why is that? It is because they have been conditioned to. They have been indoctrinated. And I'm not going to be able to undo indoctrination simply by making a rational argument, by making a couple of videos, by trying to appeal to their sense of reason. I've even offered to be some of their friends. Personal friends. And they don't want anything to do with me, such as Atheist Gamer 100. So clearly, you can't rely on the people to have the revolution that is to the people's best interest. At least, not always. I'm not saying that you can never absolutely not rely on the people. What I'm saying is that given the environment, given the situation, you have to admit America is the kind of place where you're not going to be able to have a people's revolution. You need the state. And that is probably your only option in a place like America. So, given that, I have started emailing various senators to consider passing a bill that I concocted that would essentially tax all video game companies that have produced first-person shooters or anything that glorifies or features firearm usage, about 25% of the total profits they make in those kinds of games, in order to reduce the sort of mentality that garners the violent, patriarchal, chauvinistic mindset that, makes people want to go out and shoot 20 children at a school. Will it work? I don't know. It couldn't hurt to try. Certainly these gigantic companies deserve to be taxed. Certainly someone should be blamed, and it shouldn't be you. Would you rather it be you, the poor? Because that's usually what happens. It is usually you who ends up suffering for any kind of legislation. With drugs, for example. We know drugs hurt people, but is it the fault of the person that just wants to use drugs in their personal day-to-day life that is to blame? No. The person that buys cocaine would not even be able to access it were it not for the procurement of drug dealers and, military going into Afghanistan to protect the opiate fields and things like that. The point is, it is not the fault of the common man, but the common man ends up taking the burden, and on top of it all, blames himself, blames his fellow working man, and continues on with this travesty of a system. So, if they're that stupid and they're that evil, you cannot go to them. The only one you can go to is the state. The state is the only one with the means available to change anything in the immediate. And so that's simply what it comes down to. You can get more done going to your local congressman than you ever could just trying to reason with these dumbasses. And so, you know what? If you all want to think that I'm just some sadistic troll, I'm a psychopath, Jim Prophet's crazy, man, all he does is threaten people, blah blah, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna bother with you. I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm not going to speak directly to you. You are not a human being as far as I'm concerned. You are cattle. I don't give a shit what happens to cattle. But I do give a shit about principles. And in principle, what is going on is wrong. And in principle, I know who should be the ones paying for it. And in principle, it seems the only rational course of action is to go to the state. The only one that can be trusted at this point is people in the positions of the state. So that's really all I have to say. If you believe that something should be done, you need to go to your local congressman, you need to go to the Senate, you need to go to your governors, whatever. You know, they're willing to listen. They answer phones, they accept emails, things like that. Just talk it out with them, because I guarantee you they are more adult about this situation than a bunch of fucking assholes on YouTube that just want to believe capitalism works. But they're not doing what they want to do in life. And I don't mean that we all have to be an astronaut or a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. But realistically, shouldn't you be doing whatever mundane job makes you happy? I mean, in reality, you know, I know you don't expect to be an astronaut or some shit. But do you have to be doing what you're doing now? Couldn't you at least get that much out of life that if you have to be working the mediocre life that you're working in now, that it be on your terms? Like me, for example. I don't have to do anything fantastic, but if it were up to me, I would like to work in tobacco. And that is my right as a human being. It is not the most fantastic job. It is not the most, well-paying job. It is not the most, legendary job that's gonna get me on the cover of magazines and shit. But it would be something that would make me happy, and I would still be in the same place I am now within society's paradigm. So, why isn't that available to me? And, you have to ask those kinds of questions. And when you realize that you're not going to get an answer, you're going to have to seek out those answers. You're going to have to fill in the blanks on the piece of paper using your own brain. You're going to have to make it up as you go along, and you're going to have to answer those questions yourself with your own principles, because nobody is going to do it for you. So, that's really all I have to say. That I'm going to work hard with Congress to pass some kind of legislation against video games. Not only to honor the deaths of the people that died on that Connecticut massacre, but against moderators. Because really what this comes down to is moderators. Moderators are responsible for those children's deaths. Moderators were responsible for twisting that poor kid's mind into shooting up 20-some children. Moderators are responsible for a lot of the shit that's going on in today's society. So, that's it.